I guess, turn off your video and leave. Or leave. But it's really nice to see faces. I can now attach faces to names, and I haven't been able to do that with a lot of the parents. I know a lot of your kids, but I don't know you. So thank you for joining us. I'm Penny, if you didn't already get that, and I have been working not in the BCSSA office, but at my home office, as are many of you in this weird times. So I think I will start. Just curious, Lee, are you on as co-host?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can
so
do
you can
admin
let
stuff.
people in.
Yep.
Awesome, great. So if you have any questions, I didn't get any questions in advance, so that's great. But I'm sure there'll be questions as we go. And I don't want to assume that everybody knows how to use Zoom or is familiar with it, but just in case you aren't, you can click at the bottom for participant list to see who's there and who's talking. There's also a chat bar. And what's the other thing? If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box or you can raise your hand if you have that as an option. I, for some reason, don't, but I'm assuming that everybody else has the option. And you can raise your hand and Lee will let me know that there's somebody there who wants to chat.
When you're the host, you can't raise your hand.
No, I've noticed that. All right. Has everybody had a chance to look at the workbook? Take a peek at it? Awesome, great. So I have a little presentation to show. I just have to share screen to do so. If you just give me a minute. It's going over to the wrong one. I don't know why it's going onto that screen. Okay, let's stop that new share. Let's share this one. Yes? Everybody can see that now? Awesome. So in case you didn't know what you were here for, we're here for the Return to Swimming Guidelines. So just what we wanted to cover tonight is just what the Return to Sport process is, general guidelines to guide everything that you're doing, just the order that you should consider all the things in. And then we'll go through the workbook sort of section by section and answer questions as we go. And review what the next steps are for each of the clubs, and then answer questions at the end if there's still more questions. The idea to this is that we didn't want to prescribe what every club should do because every club is different. So it's very important to just give you all the questions, all the things to consider as you're making up your own plan for your club. So I've got this screen sharing thing right in the middle. There we go. So for those that haven't familiarized themselves with the plan in general, the Return to Sport process, this is what every sport in BC has to do in order to return to their active sport area. And swimming is no different, summer swimming no different, water polo, diving, all of it, it's all the same thing. So it all follows the BC's Restart plan, which I won't go through because it's really long. But our board of directors approved the workbook and guidelines, and then it was distributed out to everybody. If you go through it, you should be able to get information that will then help you creating your own return to sport plan. Your board has to approve it. And make sure that you have insurance coverage, which is actually almost moot now because of this new ministerial order. And for those that didn't know what the ministerial order is that basically amateur sport clubs are covered for liability related to COVID contagion. So in the past, our insurance coverage did not have COVID coverage, but the new ministerial order does have it now. And then you may need to submit it. Again, every municipality is different, but you may need to submit this plan to your municipality in order to use the pools. Any questions on that? Has everybody seen the notice about the ministerial order for insurance coverage for amateur sports? Any no's out there? No? Okay, awesome. So I actually just found this today and I thought it was a really good visual to see there's 4 levels of controls um, from the most useful that will help the most to the least useful. So the broadest area is to eliminate the risks. Close the door, please. Sorry, child, dog came in. So level 1, just eliminate the risk by limiting people into your facility, into your program, into your area. Second level being engineering controls. That's where people are putting in barriers between themselves and the public. Administrative controls, that's something that we're talking about here, is your rules and guidelines for operating, your cleaning protocols. And then the final is the personal protective equipment, because it's not as good as just not being in contact with people. There's still an element of risk there. So you'll see as we go through that we do consider all of these areas in the plan, but it's just a good guideline to keep in mind, to think of the first level first and then the 4th level fast. I think everybody tends to jump to the PPE, but there's a lot of steps in between that can help. So the workbook isn't to prescribe what you're doing, it's just to give you questions that may twig you, that may help you consider all the different areas and as you are working and looking at your own programs and facilities. Everything in the book won't apply to everybody on the call. It won't apply to every single facility. So it's just a guideline to help you as you move through it. Also suggest that you work from the front to back, because the end information is sort of more in depth than the front information, so it helps. And to have information at hand that we suggest to have, like your insurance papers, have a facility drawing so that you have an idea as to how you're going to work out your layout for your swimmers and coaches, etc. It is on the website. This isn't like a true link. It's just a link to show you where it is. There's COVID-19 updates, and then under that, it has resources and communications related to COVID-19, and it's found under there. It's also linked in the announcements if you wanted to look there, but if you wanted to find a copy of it, that's where it would be. All right, so to go through the workbook, which I just have to open, it was open, but it's open on the screen that I am sharing. So it's a little bit harder for me to get at it. Do you have any questions up till now? No? Just give me 2 seconds here. Sorry, I didn't have it open on this side. It's basically divided into 4 areas: the operations and administration, which is like the back side of things, and then as you're planning to moving forward, you're planning your practices and your overall programs, and then just general issues of your club to consider. So it just helps to have it for me and on the side here, so I know that I am following everything properly. I'm not going to share it, I'm just having it open for my information. So basically the way it's laid out is that each area has just a little blurb about the topic, and then there's a box where you would fill in your own specific information. your insurance concerns, who you're going to follow up with, for example, on the first page here. But as it said that BCSSA has no liability coverage for COVID-19 related claims, there are, as I mentioned before, this ministerial order, which I'm going to bring over here and hopefully be able to share it. Is that sharing now with everybody? So basically what this means is that starting now, that any amateur sport club that is operating in BC now is covered for liability for damages related directly or indirectly to COVID-19, as long as you're following all the applicable emergency and public health guidelines. So this is good news for everybody, I think, and really a great aid to us as we're starting our clubs up again. Did I hear a question, Lee? No? Okay. One of the big questions.
Sorry, I have one question.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, sorry, maybe jump.
Is there an anticipated date of opening up the pools? Like, I know there was rumors Surrey's opening up and, but people just talk and blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard, like I talked to the city of Abbotsford, they're not planning on opening up the pools anytime soon. So have other people heard differently?
I think every community is different. Every community is working on their own timeline, their own budgets, their own availability, and even all their facilities, right? Like they're all different. So somebody just wrote in the chat that Surrey is opening June 27th. I know that some clubs or some municipalities are opening up water parks possibly in the next week. Carl just said that Coquitlam's opening up June 29th. So whereas North Vancouver is not opening up at all this summer, as far as I know. There's different considerations. And I think, where are they opening up fully, or are they opening up just a few facilities? They're all different. So there we go. Danny's just said many communities do not know when or if others have made actual plans, and it varies all across the province. So best to check in with your Parks and Rec or whoever it is that operates the facility that you're in and just see what the plans are, because it's not just about COVID, there's also financial considerations to open. Yeah, that's what Carl just said. Some won't open because of financial issues.
Yeah, it's just interesting because if you think about like some people will be open and some won't, then is there going to be a sharing of the facilities between clubs, or would that not even be a consideration because we're already trying to limit the amount of people that are going to be there? It's kind of a...
Every facility is going to be different. But, from my understanding is that clubs won't be allowed into the facilities for the most part unless they have a plan.
Penny, if I could jump in.
Yep. Standing.
So even the idea of possibly sharing facilities is pretty remote, because you're going to be very, very limited on how many are going to get into a facility. Absolute optimum right now would be 4 swimmers per lane maximum. And so there's just not going to be much pool space even for those that are open. The other thing I do want to stress, a lot of the communities will not be opening strictly for financial reasons. A number of communities have postponed their tax collection until the fall. Others have postponed the penalties until the fall. And so their revenue is down, and pools are expensive to open. And so probably a majority will not be opening just for financial reasons.
True. And I saw that somebody asked for clarification about the ministerial order. So I'm just going to read out a statement that will hopefully clarify. The ministerial order protects amateur sport organizations and their representatives from damages resulting directly or indirectly from COVID-19 for amateur sports. For example, a sports organizations or its representatives will not be liable for a participant in their sports program being exposed to COVID-19 as a result of participation. The liability protection would be in place as long as they follow applicable guidelines. Then they gave their things. This guidelines includes encouraging proper hand washing, regular disinfecting, limiting shared equipment, physical distancing measures, and the use of wellness questionnaires and health self-assessment tools. So I think, you know, it's not, I'm not an insurance salesperson. So to me, that says that's liability insurance, but you know, we're protected against liability. It's not
It's
necessarily
not so
the same
much
as insurance.
liability, it's not so much liability insurance, and any lawyer feel free to jump in, but it's the Solicitor General saying you will not sue somebody
Exactly.
for this. And if you do, the Solicitor General will protect us as long as we have not been negligent.
Exactly. So following the rules that are out there, the provincial health orders, because this is only as good as it was, as the information we had on June 5th. So things might change as we go, and you know, we can't be updating every day with a new information according to the provincial health officers. I mean, we'll try, and certainly relay that information as much as possible, but really encourage everybody to be up to date on what is being recommended in their area. So ministerial order, that would be something, if you have concerns in that area, maybe follow up with asking more information about it. So that brings us to the waivers. And that there was a lot of debate on our side about waivers and how they would be used. So where did my thing go? Okay, sorry. I just have to get to the right page. There was a lot of information provided in the book about the waivers and when they should be used, and background information about pros and cons and ins and outs and everything. So I would encourage everybody to really review all of this. But in general, there's different waivers for minors or adults. You have to have the right waiver for the right person. And it should be printed on one piece of paper that's double-sided. And it should be presented separately from like a whole pile of papers for somebody to sign. They generally should agree to the waiver before they agree to sign up for the participation in whatever program. And the waivers, any waivers that you've had before, do not carry over. Like, this has to be a separate waiver because it has the COVID-19 explicitly laid out in front of it.
Just a quick question on the waivers. Normally we attach the waivers to our active registration. So could it be part of that process? Like if they're registering through active, could we actually have the waivers loaded in there?
So I honestly am not as familiar as other people, but I see Danny has put his hand up to perhaps answer that, or
I'm reluctant to say yes to that because the lawyer was very explicit that these have to be treated almost as a separate entity. And so that would be very close to lumping them in with other waivers and other forms. The lawyer preferably would have these signed before we did any kind of registration at all, so that they are the primary thing that a parent is signing. So I'd say, no, you don't want to lump them in on active. We may almost have to, go back to old fashioned, here's the piece of paper, read it, sign it, give it back to me.
Thanks.
Danny, I guess the one thing on that is it seems like if we're moving towards in pool in person, but it seems to go against the distancing, but that's the purpose is to get people together and practicing. So I guess there was a reason for them having that so separate.
Yeah, he was very, very explicit about that. So the other
Original
question
signature.
I see,
Sorry.
does it have to be an original signature? And that's not something that the lawyer
Touched
said
upon.
anything about, but you definitely want to be able to prove that that was signed by that parent.
So there is a line that they said, if the registration is completed online, the agreement should be included in the registration process, and agreeing to it should be a required step. So that says that you can do it, but it should require active participation. I'm just reading through to maybe clarify a bit. But, you know, I think, like Clinton just said, electronic signatures are legal in British Columbia. I think it would probably be okay, but you may want to just double check that if you have legal advice.
The main thing is that they want to make sure the parents or the guardians read it fully and understand
Yes,
totally what they're signing.
yeah. Yeah, it has to be, like, they have to be aware of what they're doing. It's not just another signature on a whole pile of papers. You know, when you sign your kid up for school and you have like a gazillion pieces of paper, you get to the bottom of it for your third kid and you're not really reading any of it anymore. So we don't really want that to happen. He wants people to really know that they are excluding COVID in our liability from, and that it is a risk. Okay, lots of questions on that one. The waivers are linked in the appendix, and I will also be putting them up on the website. I just haven't done that yet because they're linked here. Yes, the consent has to be expressed. It can't be that they just scroll through it. They have to actually check box it, saying I've read it. So thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions about the waivers?
Penny, can I just make a point on the waiver?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Carl. The ministerial order, explicitly rules out negligence, and so these waivers explicitly include negligence, and so we need to take this seriously. We need to follow the steps as the lawyer said it and get it done, because it's really going to be the only thing that protects you in case of negligence, or if somebody tries to make a case of negligence in your operation. So, I'd highly recommend you don't try and shortcut it and use active. Get it signed, make sure people know what they're signing and agree to it.
Thank you. All right, I will move on. Following that is the practice planning, and this won't apply to a lot of people because you don't have control over access to your facility, but it is something to think about, when and where people are coming from and how they're going in and out, and as well as employers of coaches, that you have to follow the WorkSafe BC guidelines as well. So just to be aware of all of that and make sure that you're screening your coaches in advance, and reviewing all of this with them as well, reviewing this is in addition to their training before they go back to work, is what are the procedures for screening and for staying safe as a person, as a club, as a facility. So I would liaise with your facility if you're not the people that have access to it. And if you are, great. You'll have to make up your own, but coaches and swimmer access. We did include one practice layout just as an idea, and I've already had a few questions sent by email on this one, but these are like 1 and 2 are each a single lane, right? And then you would have them go out in 1 and come back in 2, so that they're maintaining a 2-meter physical distance at all times. Does that make sense?
And Penny, just a Sorry,
Yep.
it's Carl again. Just a point on that. It's not just while they're swimming that they maintain that.
Yeah,
They have to
that's-
maintain that even if they're stopped, so they can't bunch up at the ends. So
exactly.
basically, where those people are in the lane is where they're going to stop to get instructions to make sure that they stay 2 meters apart.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you'll have to, really look at the swimmers in the lanes and group them accordingly and make sure that they, like Carol said, you're not bunching up 18 swimmers in the pool at once. You could go up one more. I think 3 is good. Yes, a double swimmer would be 8 swimmers, but right now, the way I've pictured it here, I only have 3 swimmers in each lane. Andrea or Andrea,
Yep.
I think you had your name up. Yeah, or your hand.
Yeah, thank you. So just to confirm then, so you don't have lane ropes between 1 and 2? You want lane ropes like every
Well,
second?
you could. I mean, that's up to you to decide,
Oh, okay.
really. But I would make sure that there's like it's defined that you go in and like you're going in this way and out this way.
Yeah. Okay.
Some pools have different sized lane markers, so if there's a way to do that, that's also up to the pool, how they want to set it up to a certain extent, but you guys can confirm that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. There's other configurations that you can find in the Life Saving Society guidelines, Swimming Canada guidelines. There's all sorts of options out there, and I would encourage you to look at the options out there. Even the US swimming guidelines are pretty good. They have some really good layouts that you can look at. Sorry, I'm just reading the chats right now. The local pool in Rosslyn is opening in July, but only allow 1 swimmer per lane or more than 1 if they're in the same family. Yes, that would make swim training rather impractical. I'm not sure how you would work around that. Ultimately, they have the decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is a thing where that double lane configuration is about the only way you can do it, because basically if you measure from the center of the lane line to the center of the lane line beside it, it's 2 meters. And so everybody has to stay on the lane line. And so you could have 3 in the lane, but they have to come up the other lane. They can't come back on the same lane.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only way really you'll be able to do this, is if you
And
run
if you
people down the lane and then back up the next lane.
And if you have a lane in the middle, I would think that would prevent swimmers from easily being able to go to the next lane to come back. But I don't know.
Yeah, it makes it a bit difficult to turn though when you have a lane rope, because you have to duck under the lane rope to then go up the next lane. I think everybody is pretty used to swimming in this configuration. Yeah. At one point or another, people do it.
So there's other areas when you're planning your practice that you often wouldn't really think of because it's just always been that way, or it's always there, so you don't think about it. Like, where is your coach going to have their break time? Where are they going to park? Where are parents going to drop off? Do you need, well, that's more down below as well, but you don't want all the staff coming at the same time, because then you're going to have a little bit of a bottleneck at the entry area, and you want to stagger it so you don't have too many people in one place at a time. So these are things that you should review under the employee coach access. But a lot of that you'll have to likely negotiate or collaborate with the municipality or whoever is operating the pool, because everybody's different and they have quite a bit of say in that, right? Swimmers access. So one thing that is, I think, recommended or being put in place at every pool that I've heard of is that the change rooms and shower areas are pretty much off limits. So plan for that. It just reduces one extra area of contagion possibility. Have kids come to the pool in their gear and go home and shower. screening swimmers and coaches at the entry point. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat here from between Danny and Carl. Apparently coaches don't get breaks. Oh dear. Well, according to WorkSafe BC, you probably should be getting a break, right? So where am I at? Consider a plan for bathrooms. Where are people gonna pee? And as I said before, the waiting area for kids before, like as they're waiting for rides or when they're waiting for their time to come in, if they get dropped off a little too early, where are they going to wait? How are you going to keep people socially distanced that way? And this is where your facility layout will help. You can use this to sort of graph it out on paper. I think that's all for that area. I'm just reading through. Also, we would recommend not having parents attend the meetings just because it is, you know, that's more people in your facility, right? And you really want to limit your numbers. Remember that first step was limitation. I think this section is where the bulk of your planning will be and your questions. Oh, just to go back to the practice planning, is that you need a different plan for every sport discipline. So diving will need a separate plan from swimming, from water polo, and from artistic, because their needs in the pool are all different, obviously. So you have to have a plan for each of those. Program planning, so you want to look at all of these factors when you're thinking about how you're going to run the program for the rest of the summer. So age and ability level for the kids, you may want to consider not having the little kids participate because you can't do hand over hand teaching. You know, that's up to you guys to figure out. So yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys to figure out what you can do. And I believe somebody has their hand up. Tanya?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering, with regards, you made a comment about needing a separate plan for each discipline. Can we not have one overall return to sport plan? Because there are a lot of things that overlap, and then within that, do a section for water polo, a section for swimming,
Yeah.
a section for, okay.
I just meant like a facility plan, like a layout, how you're going to move people, where things are going to be. Like obviously there's some things that are going to be the same because it's facility. You can have your waiting area, your pickup place for this in the same place for every discipline. But you know, you don't necessarily need lane swimming for diving. You need to figure out how you're going to rotate people through the diving boards safely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and somebody's just saying the dance studio that kids have to wait in the vehicle. You know, that just needs to be part of your plan. You know, that's a great plan, but you just need to have it as a plan. What about, are there kids that walk to the pool? I know there were kids at our local pool that just walked over, certainly what we would do. So that wouldn't be an option there. So you just need to consider, what is your plan? Either you're going to wait in the vehicle or here, or you know, whatever it is, but just make it clear. So yeah, abilities of the kids. So you know, the minis that you're maybe teaching a little bit more of swimming, it tends to be a bit closer in proximity, so you may want to not have them included in your programs this summer. I don't know what you can do instead. Just out of curiosity, when I have my Zoom chat here, can you see it? No? Awesome. I'll leave it there then. Okay, so scheduling as well is another issue. You know, who's practicing at what times in the pool? So you want to think about the departure of one group, the cleaning and disinfecting time in between, maybe a chance for your coaches to have that break that they're not supposed to get, go to the bathroom, and then the arrival and welcoming of the next group. So just thinking about how you're going to schedule all the different groups coming through. One thing that is perhaps different is the contact tracing. It's really important that you have a means of knowing who was at the pool together at any one time. So you must have an attendance taken, and would include also the coaches, any additional volunteers that are included at the pool, spectators, if you're choosing to have them, how are you going to register them? And just make sure that everybody's listed so that it is then part of your illness plan. If somebody does come up with COVID-19 from that particular practice, you know who else to contact to say you need to quarantine or whatever your illness plan is, which we're getting to in the next section. Bulkheads between groups, I think that would depend what the usage of them is. Anything that's in contact with the water regularly is fine. That's the question, is that it's the things that are either porous or just occasional shared equipment, or that are used here and then there, you know, like not being in the contact with the whole water the whole time. Danny, you had your hand up?
So I was going to say, first of all, in equipment, we want to encourage our swimmers as much as possible to bring their own equipment with them and then take that back with them. Now, things like flutter boards, you know, not so easy, but on the one hand, those flutter boards are floating around in chlorinated water. So it's not like they're going to be transferring a whole lot. The other hand, for instance, you know, I've got enough flutter boards to put 72 kids on board. So if I got all 8 lanes and I was able to put my 32 kids in the water, when those 32 are finished, their flutter boards go over to a corner and the next group gets new flutter boards. And so you can just do that with the personal equipment. As far as deck space goes, no, that disinfection definitely is up to the facility. But also, you know, once again, it's a hard surface. It's getting splashed with chlorinated water all the time. It's really not much of a concern.
No. One idea that I had also about the shared club equipment, like the flutter boards and stuff, is you could just assign each kid a kit for the summer, and this is your kit. You're going to return it back at the end of the summer, but that's, you bring it to every practice, and it's got your flutter board or any of those other aids that you might have. And that's just a thought I had. Then it's theirs, and you don't have to worry about disinfecting it. It's theirs. They number them. Number 1 goes to Johnny. Number 2 goes to Bonnie, you know, like then you know whose they are. So cleanage, signage. Usually the signage will be taken care of by the facility, but it's something to be aware of. You know, where maybe have a sign as to what, you know, where your waiting area is, or where your divers are going to line up, the lines on the pool deck. Just make sure, have a conversation with the pool to make sure that all of that stuff is taken care of. The PPE, you know, I would review the life-saving guidelines, because there's a lot of information there about who gets what kind of PPE, but where are you going to source it? Do you have to provide it? How is it going to be used? How is it going to be cleaned? Is it appropriate to clean it? Those are all questions that you need to find out, and that information is out there. It's in the life-saving manual. It's a lot of information. It's probably about, I don't know, 10 pages in that manual. So I didn't want to repeat it all here. Also, WorkSafe BC has a lot of really good information. As Danny was saying about the shared club equipment, I would minimize that as much as possible, things that are shared between kids. They said the porous materials, which would be the flutter boards, or PFDs, if they're being shared, those have to be disinfected after every kid. And you need to find out what the best way is of doing that by reviewing the WorkSafe BC or talking to your pool. And then how are you going to communicate all of this stuff to all your memberships so that you're not overwhelming them, and it's keeping it clean and clear and easy to understand, because it's all new to everybody, right? Okay, so apparently you can order PPE from the Life Saving Society as a nonprofit not running any courses. They're suffering right now too, and the prices are reasonable. So that's good to know. Any questions about planning your programs right now?
I just make one point, Penny. The
Sure.
RLS particularly said that they discourage the use of snorkels for the swims. So if you're planning on practices and stuff, especially with your seniors, I know that a lot of them you'd use snorkels, so they get longer swims in with things. But those are not recommended.
And a lot of pools will have rules about goggles wearing. So again, you need to talk to them. Danny wants to speak.
I'm just
You
looking
may.
at Tanya's question about the flow
Yes.
around the pool.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations is you have an adequate amount of time, and there's been different minutes suggested, but an adequate amount of time between groups. So when the group in the water is finished, they are able to go get their equipment. It also depends how your pool is laid out. So as an example, our pool, we don't have multiple entry points if we're not using the change rooms. So we only have one entry point. So our swimmers will be dropped off outside. They'll have to enter single file into the lobby. We will have a parent station there that will check their health and also do the attendance with the time so that we know they're there. They'll proceed through the single door we have onto the deck to their spot. And so each spot will be marked off along the wall, and that's where they put their bag. We actually have a shower on deck, so then they proceed in a counterclockwise, single file, do their shower, come back, find their place in the pool. Our next group, when they come in, they'll actually be able to put their equipment along their own wall, be isolated from the other group, and they can line up across the building ready to do their shower. First group is out of the water, gets their equipment, heads out the door. Second group is able to get into the water. So it depends, how your facility is lined up.
Thank you, Danny. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was planning for our facility as well.
Nice. It's nice when it lines up nicely like that. But yeah, asking other people what they're doing, I think that's a great idea. Emailing other clubs and find out even from the city assuming it's a city that runs your facility, which I assume the majority do, ask them what they're doing, what other groups are doing, because that would be a great way to collaborate with them and make sure you're all on the same page. Assuming you have a good relationship with the operators. That's a very good question. Jane just asked if people are willing to share their plans. I would love to have a means for people to share plans with each other. I think that's a great way. Rather than reinventing the wheel, just spit on it and make it yours. That's what we always said. I will look into the platform for clubs to continue to collaborate. I'm not sure what we've got, but let's look at that. So within your club operations, screening for your participants and your staff and anybody that comes in and out of your pool during your time is something that will be your responsibility. So you'll have to have the questions of, do you feel unwell? Do you have a cough or cold? Do you have a fever? Have you been in contact with someone who's known to have COVID-19 in the last 14 days? And have you traveled outside of the country in the past 14 days? So those are kind of the 5 important questions. I know, I just found out that to go to the Apple store tomorrow, we have to get our temperature checked at the door. So that's different. I haven't had to do that one yet. There's some great offers coming through in the chat. So, that's something that you guys might want to consider. I don't know if you want to get that high level. It's up to everybody. But it's not just about screening in the as they come in, but it's also monitoring them during the practice and having a plan for a protocol if somebody does start to feel unwell. Where do they go? Where do they isolate? How do you let people know? Who's going to let people know? What's the process? So having a plan, and there was a sample one in the appendix that you can look through. And again, I'm just pointing out again the attendance that you have to take it at every practice or every get together, whether it's in the pool or a dry land training as a group. I would always make sure you have an attendance. Any questions there? Oh, awesome. That's pretty much everything that we could come up with making your return to the pool plan. So let's see if we can find a way for people to collaborate. If people have plans that they're willing to share, if you want to email them to me, and well, I'm going to try and come up with a platform. I don't know if my experts on the call have any info on that, but I'd be open to ideas. And then your board of directors must approve your plan. That's sort of the only thing the only level of approval is your board of directors present your plan to your pool operator, and just make sure you review your plan regularly and that it's up to date on all the PHO orders, etc. Water polo is okay with all the contact in the water. So water polo just released their plan after we did ours. And so their plan, let me see if I can find it and I can show it. They actually don't recommend gameplay. It's mostly skill play, but you can find their plan on the water polo website. At least I think you can. Just looking for it. Okay, so it is on their website under the resources, and I will add it into the chat for people. There's also a one-pager, which I found really great, and might make one for us as well, because I really liked it. The provincial health officer has said no gameplay, no competitions. It's just skill-based, fundamental movement skills, and sport-based movement skills. That's what everybody's supposed to be doing. All right. So where do you go to for more help? There's a really good list in Appendix A of the workbook. I've also tried to include them on our website under the COVID-19 page. And you can always email me. Whoops, I didn't mean to go forward just yet. Where'd it go? It disappeared. I'm going to stop sharing. I think everybody has my email address, but if you don't, it's on the website, office@bcsummerswimming.com. Minimum age and ability. There's nothing that's been prescribed that I have read. And I would encourage you to look at all the different disciplines. Swimming Canada has pretty good guidelines, and like I said before, Life Saving Society. But I don't think I've seen any age restrictions specifically anywhere. The idea is that we were recording this and we will make it live. Not live, we'll make it available on the website so people can listen to it if they were not able to, or watch it if they weren't able to be here. And I can share the presentation as well. I can make it available online as well. Yeah, exactly. Danny said that there's some 8-year-olds that would be fine in the pool, and there's other 8-year-olds that would be horrible in the pool. So you really need to look at the abilities and figure out what's going to work for you and have that clearly laid out in your plan.
Yeah, when I said 200 meters, that was just looking at our own club. And even when we go with, okay, 200 meters, we're still at 140 swimmers, and we're not going to have room for 140 swimmers in the water. And so that's sort of an arbitrary line that we made in the sand for now.
Every pool is different. Every club is different. There may be some clubs that only have a handful of little ones that with little ability. Others might have a ton. If it's 140, that's a lot. Does anybody have ideas on collaboration platforms? Because now I don't know what we would use. Email me if you come up with a brilliant idea. Oh, Jessica, go for it.
I'm curious if anyone's doing open water swimming.
Very good question. I believe there are some clubs that are doing open water.
The issue is that they have to have the lifeguards and coaches have to have specialty life-saving skills related to open water. They can't just be trained at one level, was our understanding.
Yes, and the problem is that there's nobody that has these tickets. We just spoke to the director. It's very frustrating.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what to suggest, but that would be the one thing that you have to show that you're doing due diligence to protect your members, and that's sort of the criteria that has been set forth by the governing body as to the minimum standards if you're swimming in open water. Now, individuals can go out and swim on their own, but it can't be a club-related event. Danny, was that a comment or just?
Oh no, sorry, I dropped something. I didn't realize I hadn't muted.
Okay.
That's just the ice clinking in my glass.
Oh, nice. Clubs clubs send plans to their regional directors so they can share with other clubs? I guess if you're willing to share your plans, send them out to either your regional director or to me. I would certainly love to see some, just to be able to provide guidance to other people. Just, it's not, we're not approving it. We're just holding them for you to share with others. Any other questions? Awesome. If you think of some, send them my way, and I will do my best to answer them in a timely manner. Yes, there's a lot of Baxters that have needed some coverage. Sue, we did go over the insurance at the beginning. So there is no COVID-related insurance coverage for you, but the minister just set forth a ministerial order which covers us for, what is it, liability? I want to read it again because protects organizations from damages resulting directly or indirectly from COVID-19 for amateur sports. I will put the link to that as well in the chat box here, in case you want to look at it directly.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm just going to answer questions randomly, but if people need to leave, you're welcome to go. The BCSSA insurance still covers regular swimming, right? Yes, regular swimming just doesn't cover COVID-related liability. You're welcome, Sarah.
What's
Yes,
the
Jim
date?
Baxter.
We've got the, this is the real Jim Baxter. BCSSA has got the $5 plan. That ends what, mid-July or?
July 9th, I believe, is the
July 9th,
last
yeah.
day, but is Catherine on the call?
Second Tuesday of July, which is the summer registration deadline.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Catherine is still here. She was here at one point, but she must have left. But yes, the second
Thursday.
Second
Thursday of July.
July 9th.
I just have it in my head as July 9th, but it is indeed the second.
It is
Thursday in
July 9th. Yeah, because July 1st is when.
It is. Any other questions?
I have a question, Andrea Grady here.
Yep.
So just back to that point about, so the deal, like the $5 BCSSA fee goes till the second Sunday of July, I believe you just said. But, sorry. So if we like let's say, for example, if we get to start up in our pool in mid-July or third week of July, can swimmers still register at the $35 rate after that, or are we now like we can't accept any swimmers after that July date?
No, they could still register.
Oh, okay.
So we picked that date because that's also the date you would have to be registered if you're going to swim regionals.
Right. Okay.
So it's just an easy date to stay with, and after that, then yeah, you're back to the 35.
Okay. Thank you.
Just while I have a lot of club reps here, if anybody's going to still have a meet of any kind, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to delete them all from the calendar pretty soon. Because I don't think meets are available because of the orders. But
You
if you're
can delete
going,
all the Fraser Valley meets.
yeah, I think I already did. Don't tell me right now, but send me an email if you're keeping anything.
Our pool is full of leaves, so I'm guessing we're not
You
gonna
can do some
one.
leaf swimming. You can join, put in a challenge video of synchro, land synchro in the pool. Just a thought. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
That ends tonight, so.
Do it quickly.
Yes.
Somebody is just joining us. I feel bad for Jackie Christopherson because it's just, we're wrapping up basically. Do the coaches have to have their NL waterfront, national waterfront, or can they be backed up by parents and others who do?
So you would have to have guards in place that have their open water certification.
Yes, well, it's the NL waterfront. So does that mean that,
like if you were going to have it,
do the parents have to be paid by the club is really my question in order for it to be covered?
My understanding is that you have to have a person there that is like a proper ratio of people that are certified with the proper certification to have the right coverage. So I don't think it matters if it has to be a paid person or a volunteer person. I would think that you just need to have that person who's dedicated to that role. That would, like, I always look at the spirit of the rule, and that would be my understanding, but I would again refer to the Life Saving Society just to make sure. The ratio of the ratio of national waterfront guards to swimmers, I don't know that. I was gonna say, you would probably be my resource, Leah. I did ask some information from Mike today because Mike has a lot of information on the Royal Life Saving Society rules, but he didn't get back to me. So, 50 to 2 for guards. That sounds good.
So
I would double check it.
Yeah, Paul, good question. Is there a specific end for the summer program? At this point in time, our rules say that we go till September 30th. But one thing the board is going to look at later in the summer is if we want to extend that this year or not in lieu of the COVID-19.
What do you have to charge members from a BCSSA perspective if we are back swimming in the pool in July? My understanding is that it's 35, but correct me if I'm wrong, Danny.
So if you are in before that magic date, it's $5. If it's after that date, it's $35.
Any other questions? How many people have a plan drafted out already? I'm just curious. No? Nobody started? Except for Danny? All right.
Salt Spring Stingrays have a draft plan
A draft
that
plan.
we've
Awesome.
to our pool already.
You've already been in your pool?
Submitted already.
Oh, good.
Kamloops Tsunami has a plan in place. I'm working on it. I still have to tweak it a bit, but it's almost done.
Great. Awesome. And it sounded like there's some pools talking about opening up in July, hopefully, maybe even June in some communities. So that's great. It's a good deal, the $5. On sale now. 2 weeks only, or whatever it is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 4 weeks only. Okay, I think that we could wrap it up here. If you have any other questions, just send me an email. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you all for your time and for asking really good questions.